I've been using the iPhone 16 Pro Max for 5 months now, ever since release day. So as we approach that midway mark until the next iPhone, I wanted to revisit my original review now that I've had a lot more time with it. Not everyone upgrades every September, of course. Maybe you are coming to the end of a contract on an older iPhone and you're wondering, should you upgrade to this or should you just wait a little bit longer? So let's start first with the design. I've said it before, but I think it's pretty safe to say that we have reached the peak iPhone design. Apple has continued to refine it year on year, settling on these flat-sided titanium rails, which make it easy to hold with a slight curve along the edge, making it more comfortable in the hand. Yes, it looks almost identical to the 15 Pro last year, just a little bit taller with these even thinner bezels around the display. We have the new camera control that sits on the side, which I don't know, it hasn't quite lived up to expectations for me, so more on that later. The dynamic island is still the same size since its debut on the 14 Pro. Some might say that this makes this look outdated compared to other phones with just a circular cutout, but honestly, I still think that this is one of the coolest blends of hardware and software. The way that it morphs and changes between timers, music controls, maps navigation. If you are on an older iPhone 13 or base 14, then this is one of those nicer long-term upgrades. And Apple has added this really cool new UI for changing the width and focus of the flashlight in iOS 18 on the Pros, which is kind of awesome. Overall, I do still love the design, but if we could get like a flatter back so that it doesn't wobble so much on a table, that would be great. I do use a case when I'm not recording these videos, which does help. And I am very careful with my phones, but every time I do still manage to get like the tiniest dink or dent. This time around, it is just sitting on the outer ring of the Fusion camera. I've no idea how I did it, but it happened like within the first week of having it before I even had a chance to get a case. But other than that, it is still looking as good as new. Most recently, I've been using the Ultra Hybrid T by Spigen, which they very kindly sent over. It is a clear case, so you do get to appreciate the design of the phone a bit more. And it has a built-in button for the camera control, which works with all of the gestures, which I do find works a lot better than a case cutout. The same goes for their tough armor case, which if I am doing something where I just need a bit more protection, then this one is thicker and, protects the phone a bit more. And it has a kickstand on the back, which always comes in handy. I'll link to both of these in the description if you want to check them out. If you're trying to decide between the 16 Pro or the Pro Max, then the good news is then the only differences are the screen size and the battery. There's no difference in the cameras or pretty much anywhere else, so that should make choosing a lot easier. On the performance side, there's really nothing day to day that the A18 Pro can't handle. Year on year, you're not going to notice that much of a difference with just how incredibly powerful these mobile chips are becoming. But looking back a few years, coming from a 3 or 4-year-old iPhone, then I think you will feel that speedy navigation and the faster opening of more demanding apps and games, as well as apps staying in memory for longer with less need to reload them. These Apple Silicon chips are incredibly powerful, but they are held back a bit by the thermals of the phone itself, as there's really no way for this thing to keep itself cool under longer load times. So that is an area that still needs improvement. And that is something that I've noticed when I've been shooting in the new 4K mode at 120 FPS, which does look amazing, by the way. I am still blown away by just how crispy it looks. But if you are shooting on a hot sunny day or in a warm environment, then you might be hit by a heat warning while shooting, which doesn't stop you from recording, but it does add a bit of a delay when you are taking stills. The big thing about this chip was, of course, Apple Intelligence. Now, this was kind of the elephant in the room when this phone first launched, as Apple had been previewing it and showing off its features leading up to and during the reveal, even though they wouldn't be available for like a good few weeks later, especially outside of the US. In fact, it still isn't available across Europe apart from here in the UK. But now that some of us do have it, has it been worth the wait? Well, there are 3 main features that I have really liked, and some others that have just fallen a bit flat. Writing Tools lets you rewrite, proofread, or format your text into different layouts in pretty much any app, anywhere where you can type and select text. You can use it to proofread, which checks spelling and grammar, which it is particularly good at, a lot better than what we've had before. You can use it to rewrite, to suggest different versions of your text. Concise will help you get your point across in as few words as possible. You can summarize blocks of text or turn it into a list of key points. I do love that. Or describe a change if you need something even more specific, like turning a press release into a bunch of posts for social media. That is a nice time saver, and it even adds some appropriate emoji for each post. All of which happens on device, as do a lot of these Apple Intelligence features. Then if you do want it to compose something for you, then they have incorporated ChatGPT using OpenAI servers, so you can prompt it to draft a message for customer support explaining that you were sent the wrong product from an order. It's great for those little irksome tasks that you often put off, and it just helps you get them done quicker. Building on that, ChatGPT is also now built into Siri. Yes, Siri has a reputation for not always giving you the best answer, and it will often just resort to offering to do a Google search instead. I like using it to ask about things that are on screen. So you can ask it like, what is this dog breed? And it'll send off a screenshot to ChatGPT for an answer. Or even, where was this photo taken? It is pretty good at getting you the right answer from a lesser known landmark that you yourself might not know. Just generally though, Siri is now a lot better at following along with what you say, even if you do stumble over your words or change your mind mid-sentence. And you can even type your request now from anywhere in the OS by double tapping the bottom of the screen when you just don't want to talk. And yes, we have that fancy new look with the glowing light that wraps around the edges of the display, and I do really like that. This next one is not the most productive, but I have had a lot of fun with Genmoji, just creating and sending the weirdest or funniest looking emoji to my mates. You give it a prompt, it gives you a few different variations to choose from. You can add more keywords to get something even more specific. In fact, the more specific you are, then the better the results tend to be, as it does kind of take things quite literally. They're also generated as PNG image stickers, so you can send them to people on an older iPhone or use them in third-party apps that have sticker support. I also like that you can use it to make an emoji based off of the faces that you've tagged in the Photos app. It does a pretty good job of capturing a person's likeness, but in the emoji art style, and it's a nice way of making something more personal for a birthday or occasion. Now, these are just some of the Apple Intelligence features, and I do have a full video looking at them in more detail, the good and the bad, which I will link to below. Cleanup in Photos is amazing. It blows my mind how it can just fill in a complex background like this. Then there is Image Playground, which, this one is pretty bad. I don't really see a use for it, and anything it does with people honestly just looks a bit nightmarish to me. Overall, Apple Intelligence does have some useful features, but I mean, it's not been like a complete game changer for me yet, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how it develops and improves from here on out. Next up, the cameras. Now, you guys know that this is the one thing that gets me the most excited about any new phone. This gen, we got an upgraded ultra-wide, a new button with the camera control, plus a complete revamp of Photographic Styles. And this one is pretty big. I'd say this is probably my favorite of the lot. The ultra-wide got a new 48 megapixel sensor, which brings the resolution in line with the main Fusion camera. The images are noticeably sharper, but only if you shoot in ProRAW. By default, it does still only capture in 12 megapixels. It's not like the Fusion camera, which by default captures 24 megapixels with the live photo. I tend to only turn ProRAW on for specific shots, so because of that, I've just not actually utilised the full resolution of the camera that much yet. The other new feature that came to every iPhone 16 is a total revamp of Photographic Styles. There are now 14 styles to choose from. The first 5 are tuned more for skin undertones with cool rose, neutral, rose gold, gold and amber. These are more nuanced with their looks, and you can set these as the default for the cameras to shoot in, or you can apply them afterwards. Gold and amber have been the ones that I've liked the most, as I do really like those warmer tones. If you do like Apple's standard style, but you're just not a fan of that sort of HDR flat look, then you can now bring the tone down to bring back some of the shadows into your shots. And that's been a request that I know a lot of people have had for a while, and is going to make them quite happy. Then the other 9 styles Apple calls moods, and these give you a lot more of a filtered look if you like something that is more dramatic or stylized. Some of these can look a bit much for my liking by default, but I have been playing around with the tone, color, and the overall palette for different looks. Take the quiet mood, for example. It looks pretty extreme at first. It is not something that I would normally use, but I've turned it into something that gives you a lot more of like a filmic retro look. Vibrant is another favourite. It gives a nice boost to all of the colours in the shot. I like using it for landscapes or sunsets, bringing out the reds and oranges. And it also enhances the blues in the sky, and it shifts the green hues more into the blue. Dramatic will give your image more of a pop, and it helps bring out the contrast and details and things like the crashing waves here. And yeah, it does pretty much what it says. It just makes a shot look more dramatic. And then there is stark black and white. I love this contrasty look, playing around with the control pad to suit the image. If you like these looks, then I have made a whole video on my camera settings and the values that I've used for my photographic styles, which I'll link to below if you want to check it out. We also got a whole new way to take photos. Apple did the unthinkable, and they actually added a button to every iPhone 16 with the camera control. It's a quick way to launch a camera app, native or third party, and it's also used for adjusting and changing your settings using swipe gestures. But this one has been, I don't know, a bit of a miss for me. I mean, I do love the tactile feel of a dedicated button, and this does physically click in. It's not, all haptic. You can also half press it to lock your focus, to reframe a shot, but it does just feel like, I don't know, a little bit difficult to press. Like I can't press and click it in without moving the phone like I can with the on-screen shutter. It just feels like it needs a little bit of tweaking. You can adjust the force, but only for the light half press. Then for the swipe gestures, I am just finding it a bit cumbersome still. Like I'll often find myself swiping too far or not enough. The only one that I might use here is the one for switching between each of the different camera focal lengths. But I do like that I can use it to quickly open the camera as I'm taking my phone out of my pocket and be ready for the shot. So I don't know, maybe just like the firmness needs adjusting, or maybe they need to just make it a little bit thicker as it is very narrow. I think it just needs a bit more tweaking for me to use it more often as an actual shutter button. I have been very happy with the battery life. It does last me all throughout the day and then some, although of course more would always be appreciated. I've been using it with this 10K Qi 2 MagSafe battery by Anker whenever I have needed a top up on the go. I'm now at over 150 cycles and still at 100% health. That is mostly charging wireless using the new 25-watt MagSafe charger. But it's not usually for another couple of months until I start to see the health degrade, just going by past experience. Although I'm guessing this is a new thing as I've not seen it before, but it has now recommended that I set a 95% charge limit. So I have done that now, so I guess we'll have to see how much of an effect that takes going forward. So what's the verdict 5 months in? I do love this phone. It is the ultimate piece of everyday tech for me. I use it to organize my day. It is my travel camera, my connection to the online world. The iPhone is a very mature piece of tech. It's had 18 years now to refine itself into the smartphone that we have today. And we are beyond the point now where yearly upgrades are really that worth it unless you really want to have the latest and greatest. You'll just get a lot more mileage out of upgrading on a 2, 3 or 4 year cycle. But I do think that it is fair to say that this gen felt like it was holding back a bit. Like I wish that the telephoto also had a resolution bump, not just the ultra wide, and also bumping it to 24 megapixels by default so we don't have to switch to ProRAW. And I do like the camera control. It just feels like it needs a few more tweaks as it can be a bit finicky. That has been my experience. It's a fantastic phone, particularly if you are upgrading from an older iPhone, but it does feel like this generation was maybe more about Apple intelligence than the actual hardware. So I am pretty interested and intrigued to see what we get at the end of this year, as this phone feels more like a stepping stone to the next iPhone. Leave a like if this video helped you out, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you want to see more tech videos from me, you can subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.